Today, we propose to furnish you with some details on this historic undertaking, the launch of our pilot for the issuance of a digital Eastern Caribbean dollar. At this juncture in our history of development of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, we must, in the words of Bob Black, the American author, march off the edge of our maps. March off the edge of our maps. What's our motivation for this pilot? Some of you may be wondering, what precisely is the motivation of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank in making this bold move? Simply put, it is shared prosperity for the citizens and residents of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. In our Strategic Plan 2017-2021, we made the case for socioeconomic transformation and issued a clarion call for all of us to have collective action to transform the ECCU together. I have said it before and I reiterate it today, that transformation is not possible without digital disruption. I therefore urge us to avoid a sense of, or avoid a failure of imagination as we craft the way forward. We must never forget that all the technology that we now use and frankly take for granted, including our smartphones, were once mere ideas. Indeed, as William Blake, the visionary British poet, poignantly reminds us, what is now proved was once only imagined. For our region to improve our development prospects and performance, we must expedite our digital transition. To that end, regulators and innovators must work together, and this pilot exemplifies this collaboration. BIT first approached the ECCB about 2 years ago with the idea of a digital EC dollar. As we continued thinking about the transformation of the ECCU, we became intrigued by the possibility of a digital fiat currency for our region. At that time, we were finalizing our strategic plan, and we made a decision to test and learn more about this idea through a pilot. 5 months after the launch of our plan, we signed an MOU with BIT in March of last year to collaborate on this idea, and so our journey to this pilot began. The decision of the ECCB to partner with BIT was premised on several considerations, including our shared values in respect of innovation for development, our vision for a digitally integrated region, BIT's capacity, technical and financial, and BIT's Caribbean identity, both in terms of its presence as well as its people. Ladies and gentlemen, the transformation of the ECCU necessitates that we make a shift and a leap. We must move from our comfort zone to a challenge zone. But we must not stop there. From there, we must move into a creative zone. In this zone, we are obliged to challenge old assumptions, examine our cultural hang-ups, and stretch our minds to enhance or to embrace new possibilities. A cursory analysis of the ECCU confirms that while our exchange rate remains firmly entrenched, with a back-end averaging around 98%, it's actually 99% as we speak, there remains a significant gap between our region's growth target and actual performance. Last year, for example, our region grew by 2.7%. This year, we project growth of 3.1%, and next year, about 3.5%. While the direction is positive, our current growth trajectory falls well below our target of 5%. Furthermore, unemployment, especially among our youth, is unacceptably high. Indeed, in some of our countries, the rate of youth unemployment doubles the national rate of unemployment. Without a doubt, we need to elevate the ECCU's growth trajectory. Such elevation external factors aside, requires a combination of smart reforms and initiatives and investments in the ECCU. At the outset, I want to make it pellucidly clear the ECCB does not intend to eliminate the use of cash. And let me repeat this. The ECCB does not intend to eliminate the use of cash. Cash has its convenience and will continue to play a very important role in our economy, and that for the foreseeable future. That said, the ECCB is committed to reduce our region's use of cash and checks. And you may ask why. Well, here's why. In the ECCU, about 80% of all payments are effected using cash or checks. When we survey our payments landscape, we cannot help but conclude that payments are still too slow and too expensive. Many of us know only too well the high costs associated with certain banking services. Although a full-scale analysis of the social costs of physical cash in the ECCU has not yet been carried out, it is indisputable that the costs of cash services, including transporting, storing, insuring, securing, are extremely high. Invariably, these high costs are passed on to the consumer. Many people do not recognize that, but that is what happens. And it is also obvious to us that many businesses do not recognize the true and full costs of cash services. This reality, however, means, and given the fact that the informal sector is so important in our region, means that the informal sector bears a disproportionate burden in respect of the costs of cash. The reality is that actors in the informal sector bear a significant burden of the cost inefficiencies of cash transactions. Lest we become too critical of small businesses, we should also acknowledge that they too face real constraints. For example, some of our businesses are required to pay as much as 3.5% on every credit card sale. That exorbitant charge reduces and in some instances removes the incentives for small businesses to offer their customers electronic options such as credit cards and debit cards. And if they do, it limits their ability to offer customers discounts because of the costs that they're paying to provide the card services. They experience what is sometimes referred to as financial frictions. It is against this backdrop that the ECCB seeks to help remove some of the current financial frictions. Indeed, it is practical issues, in the example I just cited, that have led the ECCB and BitInc to reach an agreement to develop and pilot a digital EC currency with a supporting digital payments and transfers infrastructure. Ultimately, we wish to see our people spend less of their hard-earned money on payments and more on the goods and services they wish to consume, the actual goods and services. Now to our pilot. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank digital currency pilot involves a securely minted and issued digital version of the EC dollar, DXCD. The digital EC dollar will be issued by the ECCB and distributed by licensed bank and non-bank financial institutions in the ECCU. For the avoidance of any and all doubt, the digital currency will operate alongside cash as currently obtains. So you have the physical cash and you have the digital cash. They are both cash. Yes? So they will continue to operate alongside each other. And indeed, many of you are aware that later this year, very soon in fact, the ECCB will be launching a new family of banknotes using polymer. And we look forward to that soon. The DXD, a digital dollar, will be used for financial transactions between consumers and merchants, including peer-to-peer transactions, all using smart devices. The objective of this pilot project is to assess the potential efficiency and welfare gains that could be achieved, deeper financial inclusion, faster economic growth, resilience, and competitiveness in the ECCU from the introduction of a digital sovereign currency. IBM Hyperledger Fabric has been selected as the blockchain platform because of its strong security architecture, which contributes to its not just security, but flexibility and scalability, among other desired attributes. And some of the key features of the platform is that it's a private permission blockchain, open source, hosted and managed by Linux Foundation, enterprise-grade distributed ledger, supports business transactions, supports confidentiality of data through channel architecture, provides for privacy in channels through private data feature, and better performance and scalability through flexible architecture. So those were very important considerations when we selected that particular platform, and very important considerations when we opted for a private blockchain as opposed to a public blockchain, to make sure that the security and the privacy are protected. While one acknowledges the benefits of distributed ledger technology, the ECCB recognizes that network security is a non-negotiable for a central bank digital currency construct. In light of this essential requirement, the private blockchain of IBM Hyperledger Fabric affords the ECCB the ability to control who can access the network, submit and receive transactions, and who can verify those transactions. And that's why we opted for a private as opposed to a public blockchain. Stakeholder engagement, consultations, and education have been and will continue to be central to the design, development, and deployment of this particular initiative. Indeed, June 2008, for a period of about 8 months, the ECCB engaged diverse groups of stakeholders, financial institutions, government institutions, private sector, professional associations, fintech operators, merchants, consumers, as well as regional and international pair central banks to identify the issues critical to the development of the consumer value proposition and the business requirements for the digital EC pilot. As part of pilot implementation, the ECCB will ramp up its sensitization and education initiatives to facilitate active public engagement throughout all member countries this year and next year. In the design of the digital EC dollar, the following will apply. 1, the appropriate treatment of the digital dollar by the ECCB to safeguard the confidence in and the international value of the Eastern Caribbean currency. 2, the statutory business model as enshrined in Article 4 of the ECCB Agreement of 1983. 3, the quantity of DCXD digital units in circulation will be ultimately controlled by the ECCB, as is currently the case for physical notes and coins. The ECCB will have full control over issuance. Issuance will be centralized with only the ECCB having the authority to issue and redeem digital EC dollars. This restriction will ensure resilience in system operation and security. The digital dollars will be the liability of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, as is currently the case with our physical notes and coins. The point I'm making is digital, physical cash, digital cash. Same basic rules apply. The DCXCD, the digital dollar, will be issued by licensed financial institutions and non-bank financial institutions using the private blockchain that I just referred to. Of particularly importance, 7 will be KYC and AML-CFT compliance. Know your customer and anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism compliance. Non-negotiable. Those are key parts of the design of this pilot and this digital dollar. The digital dollar storage and transactions will be conducted via accounts, DXD accounts, and wallets, which will form part of the design architecture. 9, merchant customers' digital wallets will be part of the digital payment network on the blockchain. So various vendors and providers who have wallets will be invited to basically be part of the system so that people can transact using the digital dollar and through those wallets. And 10, the technical design of the DXD system will prevent any transaction between DXD wallets from increasing or reducing the overall supply in circulation. And the DXD account cannot go into overdraft. So again, we will, as a design feature, ensure that that is the case. Now, I'm almost done. The pilot will be executed in 2 phases. The development and testing for about 12 months, followed by a rollout and implementation for about 6 months. Throughout the 18-month period of the pilot, there will be education initiatives to facilitate active public engagement throughout all member countries. So not just the pilot countries, all member countries. The pilot will be deployed in about 3 countries, based on the interests expressed by participating institutions, as well as a institutional capacity, as well as some kind of geographic representation. So we'll be looking for one of the islands from the leewards, one from the windwards. We'll be looking for indigenous bank, an international bank, a non-bank financial institution. And of course, these players will have to have the supporting infrastructure that we require. And it's not a lot, but we'll make that very clear when we engage them. Finally, as I conclude, I call to remembrance Nobel laureate Derek Walcott's poem entitled Prelude. In his poem, Walcott reminds us, and I quote, "Time creeps over the patient who are too long patient. Time creeps over the patient who are too long patient," end of quote. Here in the ECCU, we have to make sure time doesn't pass us by. We can no longer be patient when our economies and people demand transformation. I say the time to act is now. I issue a clarion call for partnership. We invite all of our banks, financial institutions, non-bank financial institutions to join us in this endeavor, to make their wallet services available so that we can test and learn from this experience. We also invite our telecommunication service providers and other technology companies to join in this effort, as together we develop a digital ecosystem from which our region can reap huge digital dividends. Most importantly, we invite the citizens and residents of the ECCU to share our views, to share your views on how this pilot can best serve you and serve and advance our development. And now, with laser-like focus, let us move forward with the EC Digital Currency Pilot Project, determined to make a significant difference in the lives of the people of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Because frankly spoken, that is what this is all about. They are our motivation for this pilot. That is why the ECCB exists, to advance the development of the people of this region. Let us join hands in this effort as we explore possibilities to advance our region. I thank you.